Get ready for that big test with Study.com. Study.com offers learning materials and test prep, even LSAT study prep guides for all of my legal nerds listening. Unfortunately, there aren't any wine study guides, and believe me, I did check. Listeners can get 30% off their first 3 months of any subscription level using the promo code CrimeOverWine. Again, that's promo code CrimeOverWine, no spaces, for 30% off your first 3 months at Study.com. Learn faster, stay motivated, study smarter with our sponsor, Study.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 41st episode of Crime Over Wine, the only podcast with head-scratching true crime stories that are just better over a bottle of wine. I'm your host, Liam Collins, and my guest co-host this week is another one of my former local news colleagues. She is a true Southern gal, and I am putting that emphasis on the true for a very good reason, and a news reporter too right here in Chattanooga. My guest co-host this week is Abigail Martin. Hello, Abigail.
Hello. Well, I guess I need to say howdy in this case, just to make
howdy. You definitely
just to
do.
bring it across a little bit more.
Listen, y'all, she is a true Nashville girly, the hat, the boots, the whole deal. It's real. So I promise you, it's gonna come out at some point. That real sick Southern accent. I promise you, it's gonna come out. So,
thank you for having me on. I'm so excited. Bring a
roasting
little Southern
you right
charm.
off the bat.
Yeah, I know. We're just gonna reel it back in. So I'm just gonna say I'll bring the Southern charm to here.
Excellent. Well, I'm so excited to have you on, Abigail. It's so great to see you. But let's get right into this wine of the week because
Please.
I need a drink. I need a
Absolutely.
nice tall glass of wine. So let's go for that. So this week we are drinking Folly of the Beasts Chardonnay. It's a well-balanced and elegant white with all of the beloved elements of a California Chardonnay. It's aged in 30% French oak to enhance delicious notes of apple, lemon rind, and vanilla.
Interesting. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I know. Me too. It's going to be really interesting. And it definitely is giving Chardonnay for sure, right? I feel whenever I, if I think of a Chardonnay, these are the kind of flavors that generally kind of pop out. Especially the oaky, flavors, of course. That's what Chardonnays are known for. So let's open this bad boy. I'm ready for this. Also, so for whatever reason, I don't know why, first of all, I loved corked bottles. But for I love, especially when there's no foil around the cork. I don't know why, I just love that look so much because you can see right through the bottle and see the cork.
Yeah.
Again, I have no reason why specifically. Yeah, it just looks really nice. I can't really explain it other than that, honestly.
Meanwhile, we'll go to my Southern charm self and had the worst of a time trying to open this thing, so.
Oh, I know. Listen,
But
y'all.
hey.
So I get a text literally 10 minutes before we're about to open this, and it's from Abigail Martin, and it is saying trying to figure out how to open a cork, and so we're getting there with Abigail, right? Let's just keep in mind where Abigail's coming from here. We're learning.
Yeah.
So
Honestly, should have just gotten the one that does the little screwdriver. It's a little
Right.
too bougie for me, but hey, TikTok got me here.
Fair. Yeah, hey, you know what? TikTok's good for something, right? I'm sure, there's, what? Honestly, I really feel I probably need to get on wine TikTok. I feel I would probably do really, really well there.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Let me know if Crime of Wine should make a TikTok, because I could never really been into TikTok, but I really dig the idea of wine TikTok.
Okay, whenever you flourish and become so successful from it, I want a little tidbit in your bio saying inspired by Abigail Martin.
Abigail Martin made me do it. Well, cheers to you, Abigail.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for coming on this week.
Smells very good. Okay.
Ooh, very light. Very light.
Interesting.
Ooh. Okay, vanilla-y for sure. I'm definitely getting vanilla. And it's really it's a very light, very, very, very light Chardonnay. Not a whole lot of flavor. That's jumping. There's, it's just very subtle flavors here. So I'm getting vanilla. I'm getting a bit of the oak in the back of the mouth. Right. And then I'm not really getting a whole lot of apple, a little bit of lemony kind of very subtle lemon. I can see that for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking really hard for the apple, and I'm not finding her yet. So I guess as we get further down the bottle.
I know. I was going to say, so a lot of times you have to let that open, let that breathe for a while to get those kind of more subtle flavors. So I'm wondering if we're going to be tasting apple by the end of this episode.
I'm sure we'll get to the apple as soon as we get to the spicy parts of the story. So maybe it would just
for
be
sure.
fitting.
Abigail, that was a really good transition.
Thank you.
Let's transition then.
I'm
I think
ready.
let's go for it. Abigail's steering this podcast, and I'm here for it. Well, let me. I can't get here fast enough, Abigail, because this story is absolutely insane. And so, Abigail, I want to tell you all about a truly wild case out of the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and I really mean that this week in a whole new way, because there's really no pinpointing just where this case went wrong exactly, but it does need a really good crime sleuth to solve it. This week, I want to tell you about Enrique Roman-Martinez and the mystery on the Outer Banks. We are going to start our story this week in May of 2020. And look, we all know what was happening in the world at that time. We were in the thick of the COVID-19 pandemic, really the worst of it all. By May, we were all pretty settled into lockdowns and the daily death counts. But I think fair to say we were pretty much over making the best of that really scary time. But military bases were under even more strict lockdown orders. Most bases wouldn't let you off base at all at this point unless you had a really specific allowance. But at Fort Bragg in Fayetteville, North Carolina, about an hour south of Raleigh, a group of soldiers were starting to get a little stir crazy, like all of us. By Memorial Day of that year, a few soldiers decided to get off base and celebrate the long weekend on North Carolina's Outer Banks, about 4 hours east of Fort Bragg. Without permission from their superiors, the soldiers took off around 3 a.m. from Fort Bragg to catch a ferry out to an island on Cape Lookout. One of those soldiers was Specialist Enrique Roman-Martinez, a decorated Army paratrooper who worked as a human resource specialist on base. Enrique is from Chino, California, and joined the Army at 17, and his family says he joined because all he ever wanted to do in his life was to do good. And by the time he was 21 in 2020, it was clear he was doing just that. He was a decorated soldier, being awarded the Army's Good Conduct Medal, a National Defense Service Medal, the Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, the Army Service Ribbon, and the Army Parachutist Badge. Now, Enrique was a proud soldier, but he had had enough at this point. By May of 2020, he had about a year left of his agreement, and he was getting, ready to get out of the military and take advantage of his GI Bill and other benefits that you get after you leave the military. And his family didn't really think twice about that at all until he started expressing some behaviors that weren't really like him. About a year before Memorial Day 2020, he started saying that he was wanting to come home to California. Now, again, the end of his term was less than a year away, but he was saying he wanted to leave even earlier than that. Now, I never really read why or what exactly he was saying to his family, but they were becoming a little concerned about him at this point.
That's fair, because I'm sure at this point he's feeling stuck, and then you throw a global pandemic in the middle of all of it, knowing you are quite physically trapped. I'm curious, though, just like you mentioned, wondering what those behaviors were that caused such a change. And I'm sure that's something that is a thought that's going to stick with us through the rest of this case.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And again, and I can only imagine that it's really just people who know him best that kind of can tell that difference, right? Like mom and dad kind of thing. The people who know how you normally sound when you call to check home. And now they're sounding he's sounding a little demurred. Maybe he's calling a little bit more often than he normally does, that kind of thing. But still, so you say, so this is 4-year agreements, right? Ish. And so, a year is in retrospect, right? Not a whole lot of time, but a long time, to
be unhappy,
be trapped somewhere, right? To be unhappy, right? Exactly. And I don't really. I'm sure it's just all compounding at this point, right? So it's just a very confusing, formative time, right? Some time where you really should be happy and carefree and really just living your best life at this point, right?
Yeah, of course. And then also just going back to the pandemic, questioning what's going on at home when you're already missing home. I feel that would only really escalate everything, and I'm curious as to how this is going to transition and transpire. Because obviously when you feel trapped, your mind starts going crazy and you're not in the best mindset. So I don't know.
Right.
This one, it's already like getting me uneasy.
Yeah, a little bit, right? Well, in the days before Enrique and his friends went on that Memorial Day weekend trip to the Outer Banks, his family said that their interactions with him were like totally normal, right? Back to normal Enrique. In fact, they said they were better than they had been, and he hadn't really directly expressed any interest in going home for a while before this trip. In all, 8 soldiers, 1 woman, and 7 men, including Enrique, went on this trip. Their plan was to camp out on the South Core Bank. So when they arrived by ferry, they did, really normal stuff that you do on the beach. They hung out, they explored a little bit, probably played a few games, probably went into the ocean, and who knows what else, right? That night, the night of May 22nd, was a really windy, rainy night. So everyone pitched their tents and went to bed. And around midnight, while the rain was still coming down, the other soldiers say Enrique walks off down the beach and into the night, wearing only blue shorts, no shirt, and no shoes. Now, whether Enrique's friends thought anything of this or not isn't really super known at this point, but what is known is that when they woke up the next morning, Enrique was nowhere to be found.
This is always how it starts in the horror stories, isn't it? I don't like this already. The fact that and going in with no shirt and no shoes out in the middle of the night in non-great conditions, because my mind immediately goes to a Kenny Chesney song, no shirt, no shoes, no problem. But it's pouring down rain. That's not the type of weather you're going out in. So I don't know. And I'm also wondering how well that these other people knew him, if maybe they suspected anything or would know to suspect anything or not. But the biggest question, where did he go?
Well, when the other 7 soldiers wake up, they get out of their tents, search around, and suddenly realize that Enrique wasn't around. And when they trade some notes, they realize that the last time anyone had seen him was when he was walking away from their campsite and down the beach. Now, they were extra worried about Enrique's mysterious disappearance because it looked like he had left all of his stuff at his campsite, right? His phone, wallet, even his glasses were all still there. And this was really weird because Enrique had really bad eyesight. He could barely see during the day without his glasses, let alone at night and in bad weather. As far as they could tell, the only thing that he had with him when he walked away into the night was the pair of blue shorts that he was wearing.
Wow. Not to have any of your belongings, and I like that there's an emphasis on the glasses because it's in the middle of the night. You have no idea probably where you are. Why would you walk away from a campsite not knowing where you are, knowing you can't see?
Yeah.
But was that supposed to be intentional, that long of a walk for him to be disappearing?
Right. Well, and too, right, because if it gives to me that that this was just him walking away was at least intended to be some kind of just walk down the beach, maybe walk toward the water or whatever, come right back kind of thing, right? Because again, like you said, if he was planning on going somewhere, why would he just leave all of his stuff? That doesn't make any, especially his glasses. Maybe you leave your phone, maybe you leave your his wallet, right? Sure, but if you're going away for an extended period of time, more than a couple of minutes, you're going to bring the one thing that you need to know where you are and be able to be 100% at your senses, right?
Yeah, no, that scares me that it started off as something very innocent and nonchalant, and at some point it took a turn, and no one knows when that point was. No one thought anything was wrong.
Right. So according to the other soldiers, they spend the day searching up and down the beach for Enrique, but almost a full day later, around 7 on the night of May 23rd, 2020, when they still hadn't found him, they decide to call 911.
Carter, County 911, what's that? Just the emergency?
We are on Cape Lookout. We are at Cape Lookout Island, and between mile marker 46 and 47 by the jetties. And we lost our friend. We don't know where he has gone, and we're kind of worried that something happened to him.
Where's the last spot you saw him at?
So we all went to bed last night, and when we woke up, he was not here, and we've been looking for him all day. We were trying to find the park ranger or their offices or anything until we went all the way to to the ferry, and we found that we needed to dial 911. We weren't sure if that's what we had to do out here. So
yeah, we can get Park Service in contact with you, sir. Are you on Core Banks or Shackleford? Are you like close to Cape Lookout?
We're on Cape Lookout.
Okay. Oh, I see where you're at. Okay. All right. And how long has he been missing?
Then I woke up at 8:30, and we've been looking for him all day. We weren't sure if we might be afraid that he might have hurt himself, but we're really not sure.
Okay, hold on 1 second. And you said between mile marker 36 and 37?
No, 46 and
46 and 47. Okay, sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
And when was the last time you saw him?
So we all went to bed at 12:03. That's when we all decided to go to bed, and that is the last time we saw him.
Okay, hold on 1 second, sir. All right, sir, I'm sorry about that. What's the phone number you're calling from? Okay, and what's your name?
Alex.
And how old is he?
He is 22.
22?
Or 21. I'm sorry, 21.
Okay, and does he have any physical, medical, or mental conditions that we need to be aware of?
He did. He wasn't diagnosed, but he did have suicidal tendencies.
Okay. Okay, I just need a description of him. What's his race?
He is Mexican.
Okay.
He has black hair, brown eyes.
And what's his name?
His name is Roman-Martinez, or Enrique Martinez.
Okay, and do you know what kind of...
Sorry, it's actually... I'm sorry. Let me backtrack. It's
no problem.
Enrique Roman. I'm sorry. That is
Enrique Roman is his name?
Yes.
Okay, do you know what kind of clothing he was wearing at all?
So he was just, when we last saw him, he was just wearing blue shorts.
Do you know his height or weight at all?
I would say he's around 180, 185, and he's probably 5'6", 5'7".
Okay, and was anybody last seen with him, or do you think he went off by himself?
Oh, he had to have gone off by himself.
Okay.
Like I said, we all went to sleep.
Okay, and he would have left on foot?
Yes, that's the only way he had to. We only have 2 cars, and they're both still here.
Okay. Do you know of anywhere he may have gone on the island at all?
No clue. This is our first time being here, so
I gotcha.
We have no clue.
Do you know if he took any personal items with him?
We searched his tent, and everything is still there. He even left his phone in his wallet.
Okay, so he doesn't have any trackable technology? Okay.
No, sir.
Do you know if he might have any weapons with him or anything?
Negative.
Okay. And then, did he leave any notes, letters, or threats or anything?
We have looked through everywhere, and besides
nothing.
His phone, we don't have the password, so we can't look on that, but he has not.
All right, sir. If you're able to, just try to find a recent photograph of him. We are getting in contact with Park Service to come make contact with you. If he does come back, just give us a call back immediately.
Yes, sir.
And that's it. I'm sorry, sir.
That's okay. Thank you so much.
But just let us know, and we are getting in contact with Park Service. They may give you a call before they come out there and talk to you. So it may come from a blocked or restricted number, so just make sure you answer it.
Yes, sir.
All right, so just general thoughts, Abigail. What do you think about what you just heard?
Well, I asked a little bit ago how well we thought that the other soldiers might have known him. And, I mean, mind you, I want to bear in mind it was probably also stress because it's a hectic event, not knowing where someone is. But there were, 3 different rounds of names that were given.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
But, again, also, obviously very stressful. So I can't even imagine to put myself in that situation. But it's a name.
Yeah, but he didn't really sound all that stressed, you know? And, to be fair, military people, typically tend to call each other by their last name. So, I get why he originally called him Roman-Martinez, right? But then, still didn't even land on his real last name, or his real name at all, right? He landed on Enrique Roman when his full name, right, is Enrique Roman-Martinez. That's his full, it's a hyphenated last name.
Right.
And so... I don't know. So I agree. That stood out to me. I was like, okay, how, are these guys really friends, or how well do they really, are they just like drinking buddies, that kind of thing?
Mm-hmm. And then also just going further into that, I guess we said a big part of it was being in some place that may or may not have been the first time that they went, and it's in the middle of the night, weather's bad, and not having your glasses. But one of the big points that the caller mentioned was that he didn't have his phone, which of course is beneficial to track, but did he even know that Enrique wore glasses, and that could be a sign of this was not intentional.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't like, this was my first time hearing this phone call. Like, right, like I very intentionally like did not like listen to it before like recording this episode, and it shocked me when because he named off all these things, like he named off his phone, his wallet's here, but didn't mention his glasses. Like that, like kind of what you're saying. Like do they even really know this guy at all? Like beyond just like some dude that maybe they work with, kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's something. The name is obviously very personable. It's how we identify each other.
Right.
And glasses is a physical attribute. So then how well does he know or not know him internally? You heard him talk about the possible suicidal tendencies. But could that have contributed to the odd behavior that his family has been talking about with, him feeling stuck and then behavior changing? I don't know.
Yeah, well, so maybe partially a little here, Abigail, right? But not entirely, though. And the reason I say that is because the family was really caught off guard the first time that they heard about this. They had no idea that he was suicidal, and as far as they knew, he wasn't at all. Plus, like we were saying before, Enrique was starting to sound more like himself leading up to this trip, according to them. And so hearing Enrique's fellow soldiers talk about him this way just was not sitting right at all.
It's just so strange because we're hearing two different sides to who and what Enrique is going through at this time. But I'm also trying to keep in mind of how in society we kind of tell men and people to bottle up their feelings.
Sure,
and
especially soldiers, right?
Especially soldiers. And if he's already feeling stuck, he may for so long is being told, like, get over it, you've got a year left, you've come this far, just finish it out type of thing, or maybe downplaying the situation. But I don't know, because it's also on the other side from the family perspective. If he is sounding more like himself, I would trust them more than people who didn't know he may or may not needed his glasses to see in the middle of the night.
Sure. Yeah. No. True. And barely even know his name. Right. Yeah.
Right.
So and because I kind of go back and forth between like the family who know him like personally like better than anybody, right? But then also the like people who knew him more recently, right? Because if he's like away for 4 years, 3+ years, kind of thing, then they haven't really I'm assuming the family hasn't really like interacted with him like on a regular, like hasn't seen him on a regular basis in probably that amount of time, right? And so these people, I'm assuming, have been around him like more often, in the last couple of weeks. And like I also, because and this is like different but the same in this way, in that like I think back to like college years, right? And that like you're 21 and like you're just like you're around these people who you think so well because you're around them all the time, but like you don't really, you know what I mean? Because like in reality, like there's like the whole like there's 18 years of these people's lives who you don't like, that you simply don't know, like you don't know who you're getting engaged with at all. And so that's, I don't know, it's just it's given me all sorts of weird energy at this point for that reason, because you truly just don't know, like you think you know these people, but you really don't know these people, and evidently they don't really know him all that well either.
Right. No, I didn't even think about the age factor, because at this time, I mean, I just turned 22. And so trying to think of like my relationships, I'm like, okay, how much do I often open up to people that are truly, that may not even be like, my best friends. If I go outside of my circle, how much do they actually know about me other than someone who maybe I went to high school with, that we follow each other on Instagram, and that's how they keep up with me. So I don't know. I really want to know, how well these people kind of hung out before they planned this trip together. Because obviously I would think they liked each other enough to do it. Sure. But, how close were they outside of this incident?
Yeah. And too, and this thought never even occurred to me until just now, Abigail. So I'm glad you said that, because if you remember, so they said originally, if you remember, it was like 3 people plus Enrique who left base to go to the Outer Banks, and then I'm assuming that means that the 3 other people, or the 4 other people, like met them there. And so I'm wondering, almost like where my brain goes is like, did Enrique even know that other group of people at all, right? To me, like I could, like, he seems like the kind of kid that like maybe potentially like he, like maybe they like couldn't convince him to go if they didn't, if he didn't think that if they didn't know that like maybe like one person that was in the other group was going to be there. You know what I mean?
Especially you are or aren't, in a weird mind space, going on a trip to somewhere you may or may not have been, I don't know, but with people you don't know.
Don't know all that well, yeah.
Yeah, it could get cliquey and you could feel left out, and so that's why he wanted to take a walk, but still, I don't know, the glasses, I know I keep going back to it, but as someone who is practically blind myself, I would not go anywhere in the middle of the night and somewhere I don't know without my vision.
Yeah. Well, because Enrique is Army personnel, it automatically triggers the Army Criminal Investigation Division, or CID, to get involved. And in the days following, the FBI even gets involved in the investigation to investigate Enrique's disappearance. And they start to ask the 7 other soldiers questions about what happened leading up to Enrique's disappearance. They tell the same story that I just told you, Abigail. They said that 3 soldiers, including Enrique, left the base around 3 a.m. to catch the ferry out to Cape Lookout. They spent the day there, and then later that night saw Enrique walking away from camp around midnight before everyone went to sleep. Woke up the next morning to Enrique just not being there at all. They spent the next day looking for him before calling police around 7 that night, but it's what investigators find out they didn't mention that makes their eyebrows go all the way up. Crime Over Wine is sponsored by BetterHelp. As someone who's used therapy for years, I know that finding a therapist can sometimes be a stress on its own, juggling your full-time job, your family, your friends, your podcast, and trying to find the right therapist on top of that can almost feel impossible. That's where BetterHelp comes in. BetterHelp matches you with a therapist that works for you on your terms. It's online, it's remote, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to one of 33,000 licensed professional therapists in as little as a few days. And because finding a new therapist is a lot like finding a new bottle of wine, if you don't jive with your therapist, you can easily switch to a new one at no additional cost. You can get 10% off your first month of BetterHelp by going to BetterHelp.com/crimeoverwine. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/crimeoverwine for 10% off your first month. Join over 4 million people who decided to get help and get happy with BetterHelp. All right, Abigail. So the wine, it hasn't really like popped up yet. Like it still feels very light, like very like I'm still not tasting that apple at all.
No, not at all. And I don't know if I'm complaining because now I'm getting used to the taste because I'm a very sweet type of girly, and it's not very sweet, but I mean it's obviously still drinkable. So I don't know. I'm getting used to the taste, so maybe the apple will kind of have.
Yeah, and you know what? Actually, like I literally just took a sip, and like now that I think about it, like it is like a little like citrusy in the way that an apple is. So maybe that's what we're talking about here, like almost like a green apple, but a very light green apple.
I feel like you're gaslighting yourself right now.
Probably. Yeah, no, you're probably right. Listen, so ever since starting this podcast, I've been like, okay, I need to like pay attention to the wine. And I really feel like I just fake it really, really well. Like, I really think that's it. Like I really am like the Wizard of Oz. Like the curtain has pulled back. Like at this point, like, listen, I'm not like, in case anyone who thinks that I'm a sommelier, I'm not a sommelier. I'm literally just a guy who likes wine. So, but I'm trying really, really hard, y'all. Okay. So, like, give me A for effort here.
You're really not helping. This cannot be your promo for your TikTok for wine.
I know, you're right about that. You're right about that. All the people listening and just like the house of cards is crumbling at this point. Like it's the glass is shattered. So sorry everybody. But for real though, because when you're talking about because Chardonnay, like I do kind of tend to think of it as like a much like lighter white. This is like the most like Chardonnay-y of like the Chardonnays I feel like I've drank in that way. But I really like it still like kind of stands out on its own when you think about Chardonnays, because when I think about Chardonnays, like I think of very buttery flavors, I think of very oaky flavors. That's not really here.
No. Again, not very experienced, so thank you for taking this opportunity for me. But yeah, and I'm very, like I said, I'm very much a sweet-minded person, which is crazy when you think about my personality. But when I drink wine, I like to ingest it. So, but this is really good. I'm confused on the flavors, or at least the description of the flavor.
Sure.
Because the apples, before, it's like not the very last characteristic mentioned. But I don't know. I'm still hopeful that we'll get to the bottom of the bottle when things start to stir up, and maybe when we get answers.
Right.
we'll get answers to the why. And it'll just make sense. I think that's your plan.
Yeah. Well, there you got me. You got me. Big spoiler alert there. She caught on to the secret.
Breaking news.
Well, but speaking of that, though, Abigail, because we just left off on a massive cliffhanger here, right, in the Enrique Roman-Martinez case.
Yeah, that was really rude.
So let's get there then, right? So investigators discover that between 1 and 2 in the afternoon, the day that everyone is searching for Enrique Roman-Martinez, the 7 soldiers encountered a park ranger on the beach. The park ranger had approached them because their cars were parked illegally and they needed to move them. That's why they went up to them. Totally okay interaction, right? Like nothing out of the ordinary here, except for the fact that they didn't mention a word about Enrique and about how one of their friends was full on missing at this point for like 12 hours.
I just rolled my eyes when you said the word friends, and I want that to be very clear because, I mean, that's also what I was thinking about whenever you were going through the last bit of this before the cliffhanger. Why did you wait so long to say, hey, homie walked in the middle of the night, no idea where.
Right.
And we haven't seen him. We woke up at 8 in the morning and didn't see him, so we spent all day searching. I get that, 100% look. But, like, I feel like that was a little bit of a confidence issue, maybe.
Sure.
Well, maybe not anymore. I don't know how I feel. But maybe, like, I don't want to ask for help yet.
Sure.
Which, something like this, I mean, we get the backside of it. So it's like, this is so serious. Please take advantage of it.
Yeah.
But didn't he say in the call that they were looking for a ranger and he didn't see anybody?
Yep, I was just about to bring that up, so I'm so glad you caught on to that too. Yeah, so he specifically mentioned the fact that he was looking for somebody to like try to help them, which like maybe like after this whole interaction was when they like realized that they were really in trouble here, so like give them the benefit of the doubt there, but like still it's been several hours, like and he's nowhere to be found. Like there's no sign of him at all. Like it seems like that would be the time to at least say like, yeah, you know, but we're just like, we're looking for a friend, you know, like maybe not full on report him missing, but like, hey, like we're like looking around because we can't find him. Like at least mention it. Right. So, and two, like I have to like bring this all back to like the original, like, you know, the top of this episode too, in that like we are also talking about like a time when like they're not supposed to be here at all. Like they're not supposed to be off base at all. And so like I do kind of give them that, like maybe it was like we don't want to get in trouble, and like certainly like the last people I want to get in trouble with is the freaking army, right? So like I give them like maybe that's where they're coming from in that way, that like if like the second that they like they're trying to like delay having to like, you know, tell somebody and like get like police involved as much as possible, so that like because then there's like maybe Enrique will just show up and then like problem solve, like everything will be okay, like you don't have to like have any sort of documentation that we are here at all.
And if that's the case, then I'm thinking from a perspective of, okay, how are these people feeling now that they saw what they saw and then, you know, found someone that could have helped, but they let that fear of getting caught, which like, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I was really on the anti-boat, but I will give a little bit, but... And
they're dumb kids, right? I mean, that's all they care about. Like, they truly are, like, just, like, these silly, like, you know, whatever. Like, that's the age that we're talking about here. Well, while the search for Enrique continued, the possibilities of what may have happened to him were really slim, and here's why. Park rangers said that the island itself was really hard to get lost on. It's basically like one long beach, as they tell multiple news outlets. Not a lot of like trees or thick weeds. Basically, they said that someone would have to go really out of their way to get lost on this island. And Abigail, it's pretty hard to like describe because these were like certainly not the beaches that I grew up on. But so I'm going to have to send you some pictures to give you a better idea of what kind of environment we're talking about here. Okay, so this gives you a pretty good idea. Like, look at this picture here, right? Like, so we're talking about, like, you know, sand, some, like, you know, splotches, like a bunch of houses that look like, you know, like these are, like, maybe, like, rentals or, like, vacation homes, that kind of thing. But, I mean, it's flat, right? Like, flat.
Yeah, there's nothing really... The most dangerous thing that I feel like I'm looking at is the water.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we're talking, so these are, it's again, like it's like some dunes, that kind of thing, but like really not a whole lot of like business going on here. There are like in some places, of course, right? Like this is the hook of the Outer Banks. So this is like the very, very like most southern piece of it. So there are like some like foresty kind of looking things. But that's not, my understanding is that that's not really where they were at. Like, it's not like you can just like wander into these places. Like, it's like, that's not what we're really talking about here.
And I feel like you wouldn't want to, considering all things that we already know. You would want to stay somewhere where like you're not worried about tripping over something.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and like again, so look at all this. It's just, again, beach. Like, all you're looking at is beach here. Like, there's nothing to be like to wander into. And I think that's the point that we're talking about, I think.
Yeah, it looks like the perfect place to, if you had a bad day or, you were overwhelmed, to kind of just de-escalate the situation that you're in and just kind of have an alone time. It doesn't look like a bad scenery at all. I mean, It doesn't. So
yeah, well, and just describe it even more, right? Like, we're talking about one of those places where like you walk on one side of the beach and then you walk like maybe like a quarter mile away on the other side, and like there's just more water. Like, that's all you're looking at here.
It's just, yeah, there's a lot of things that just have a lot of question marks so far. And then too, so now I'm curious, where did they find the park ranger? Where was their car parked? It doesn't look like you would, I don't know. I'm going to let you touch onto that, because I see a lot of things right here, and I'm seeing a lot of nothing, so I feel like you would see a human.
Well, so there aren't, like, point being here, right, is there aren't a lot of places to look for Enrique either, but that only makes this even more frustrating, because it seems Enrique must be, like, either right in front of their eyes or, like, caught up in a really bad situation here. But it wasn't until they got their first sign of Enrique when they realized just how bad that truly was.
I don't like where you're going with this, for there to be nothing and then something. So what happened?
Well, on May 29th, just 6 days after Enrique was reported missing, his severed head had been recovered. It had been washed up on Shackleford Banks, which is inland and beyond the bay from the barrier islands that make up North Carolina's Outer Banks.
I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't that. Mm-hmm. A severed head, and for that to be the first thing that they see after they quote-unquote looked for hours.
Right.
That... You were right.
Well, and again, so to be clear, like washed up from the ocean.
Yeah.
So like they weren't looking on the ocean; they were looking on the islands. Just to be clear, but
that makes a lot more sense, I guess, in terms of looking at what the beach looked like, and not looking at the, the woods area, because you wouldn't think to look in the water,
right? And
especially, I mean, for it to wash up, I can't imagine how like traumatizing that side of things was.
I don't even want to imagine how traumatizing that was, but I mean point being, like, so like there are just so many like possibilities that like go through my head of like what may or may not have happened at this point. So I don't know, but I think we'll definitely talk about that later on, so definitely like put like a cork in that, right? For the time being. But this was apparently a spot where a lot of bodies had washed up in the past, but mostly presumed drowning victims and most definitely not any severed heads. The medical examiner wrote in Enrique's autopsy report that there was evidence of multiple, quote, chop injuries to his head, and his jaw was broken in at least 2 places. Now, because they didn't have the rest of Enrique's body to examine, the coroner cannot make a definitive cause of death, saying, quote, while decapitation is in and of itself universally fatal, the remainder of the body in this case was not available for examination, and therefore potential causes of death involving the torso and extremities cannot be excluded, end quote. But the coroner does end up ruling Enrique's manner of death as a homicide.
Well, I mean, I would hope so, for there to be multiple chop injuries to the head and a jaw broken in 2 places. That's not an accident. That is terrifying.
I mean, so I go into like so many different directions, right? And like, first off, I don't really know what like the chop injuries are specifically. Like, I don't know if it's talking about like chops to like the neck, right, where like the head was severed, or if like chops to like the to the rest of the head, like somewhere else on the head. Like I didn't really get a whole lot of like clarity on that at all. But still like jaw broken, and like it's clearly like something really, 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 really bad happened here. But I don't know. I just have so many possibilities, I suppose, of what may or may not have happened, because like where the first part of my brain goes to, right, is like, shark attack, right? Like that's where my brain goes, right? Like he like wandered off into the ocean, like possibly got caught up into some sort of rip current, and like that's what happened. Like that is like the only thing that makes any sort of sense to me if this was like a really bad accident. But then like what happened to the rest of the body, right? Like a shark is not gonna just like chop off your head and then like eat the rest of your body, and like the rest of your body is just nowhere to be found. Like that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and especially for it to be in a place that a lot of other bodies have washed up before. And I mean, I think you said that mostly presumed drowning victims, not 100%, which kind of raises an eyebrow for me. And especially, you know, I don't know, I feel like a lot of questions could be answered if we knew what happened to the rest of his body. I mean, we only have a head.
Right.
So were they able to ever find the rest of his body?
Well, no, Abigail, and big spoiler alert here, they weren't at all. But right away, the family believes strongly that there is some kind of foul play involved in Enrique's death, and they are obviously just absolutely distraught about it all. And so that mentality probably isn't helped much by the feeling that they're getting about the way Enrique's death is being handled. They have a really hard time getting any sort of information out of the CID investigators or the FBI, which, to be fair, we see all the time because at the end of the day, they have an investigation to conduct and they need to be careful about what they release publicly about it. But I also have to imagine that at least part of that was because they weren't really getting anywhere with the investigation into what exactly happened to Enrique to have any information to give to the family. But that doesn't necessarily stop the family from pushing them and trying to get their own answers. As the months go by, following the discovery of Enrique's partial remains, the family is really only getting more and more frustrated, so they decide to fly out to the island themselves to do some investigating of their own, and they even hire their own private investigator to look into the case themselves. And what they find absolutely baffles them. According to military.com, an online news source reporting on the U.S. military, the private investigator finds that it took the feds months to employ dive teams to search for the rest of Enrique's body.
Months?
Months.
You have to be joking. That's why would you wait that long for answers?
Well, the CID and the FBI both said that there wasn't really much of a use to do so, Abigail. The surf is really rough out there in this part of the Outer Banks. Plus, they didn't really have much in the way of a centralized search spot to go off of here. Because, remember, Enrique's head was found inland from where he went missing, like on a totally different island. Plus, they said that the weather was a factor, too. There were some tropical systems that had moved in during the summer of 2020, which they said likely complicated the possibility of finding anything conclusive here, with everything kind of being tossed around and moved around in lots of different currents. But by the time dive teams really started searching the area in December, the family said that they had really given up hope that they would find anything at all that would bring them any closer to finding out what happened to Enrique.
That's heartbreaking. I feel like throughout anything from hearing you talk about this, that I've learned that time is of the essence. All the way from the very beginning to, you know, feeling like your contract was tying you down to going to this event, and then 8 or however many hours passed before it was 8 hours before they said, hey, by the way, and then having that park ranger you actually spoke to, why didn't you say anything there? And then to wait so long to go look for a body that it's quite obvious, I would say, that there was foul play. Why would you not want to protect? Yeah. Well, at the very least, it's obvious that he's out there somewhere, right? I mean, you have to find out if there is foul play. Yeah, absolutely. Because, I mean, there's so many things that, you know, could it be someone that was involved in how close they were? Was someone stalking the whole entire group? Is it someone unrelated? Like, that's something that for the safety of your citizens, too, and also for the justice of him and his family, you need to get answers. So why would you wait so long to do your job and investigate that? Yeah, I mean, and again, so we're talking about, so like their excuse that they're using is like some tropical systems that move through. Like, I did look up, and there were 3 hurricanes or tropical systems that had moved like in that general direction that summer, including one, and I covered this one, the one that, like, you know, made landfall like literally like on the like pretty much on the Outer Banks, and so like that had to have complicated things. But that wasn't until August when that hurricane had made landfall.
all there. And then there were also some the rest of the tropical systems that moved in like that summer were like well off of the coast, but like still kind of stirring stuff up. So like sure, like okay, but then still like once hurricane season's over, like why not then go for it? Like I can't really. I just can't justify that. I can't see where they were coming from on that note. Like, why not try? Like, the least you can do is try.
Right, because there's someone that, obviously is out there that possibly has done something horrific, but there's a family that really needs answers. And I feel like if we've learned anything from being in news, it's, yes, time is of the essence, especially when, you need to get evidence, you need to get data, you need to get a suspect pool. I need to take a second. I need another drink for this.
Yeah. Well, and so
this is like frustrating.
It is frustrating. And so, but like also to that point though too, like I almost wonder, like I get the vibes of like that they are operating on this under the assumption at this point that it was just a really bad accident, right? Yeah. Like that's the only thing that I can like even like fathom not wanting those kind of answers right away, especially the Army, right? Because like they aren't dealing like these, like the CID is like a very specific like unit. Like they are not like the FBI like investigates murders across the country, right? Whereas like the CID is strictly investigating like high crimes that exist within the US Army. Like that's it. Like it's a much smaller pool here. Like again, like not to say that they don't also have important things going on. Like I'm not trying to diminish them at all, but like I guess I just don't really understand like one of your specialists was just murdered or killed in some way. Like the coroner says that it was a homicide. So why wouldn't you want to get to the bottom of that like as quickly as humanly possible? Like before, like again, we're talking about 7 months after this whole thing happened that you finally send dive crews in. Like then you're almost guaranteed to not be able to find anything because it's been so long.
Yeah, and especially for the head to come from the water, I mean, you only have possibly so long before something else happens to the rest of the body if the rest of the body's in the water. But I'm also from a PR standpoint, I'm sure you're getting a ton of heat over this. Sure. So you would think getting answers quickly, and for it to be for there to be inconsistencies in the story, which I know it may seem like a minor detail, but to say that you were looking for him all day and you were looking for a park ranger.
Right.
You talked to a park ranger, and I know you said like keep in mind they were probably just really didn't want to get in trouble, which makes sense. Which but for now it's so easy for me to sit here right now and I'm like, that's a stupid decision.
Right. Hindsight's always in 2020. Like you don't know what they were thinking at the moment. So sure.
Yeah, that just I don't know. I don't know why. I mean, for it to be a specialist, for it to be one of your own, and for there to be many other of your own that were involved in this, something is not adding up.
Yeah, I agree.
Are there, I mean, I feel like it's hard to say at this point, but were there any guesses to what happened? I mean, we can go round and round all day.
Yeah, we sure can. And like to answer the question, like kinda, Abigail, in August of 2021, so more than a year after Enrique's death, investigators put out this really bizarre statement, like far beyond anything that I've ever seen, in covering a lot of different cases. As part of this back and forth with the family about the lack of charges in this case, the CID starts kind of rattling off all of these different possibilities of what could have happened to Enrique. And they say that there is a possibility that Enrique could have been killed and decapitated by a boat propeller.
What? He was last seen walking. I mean, I get the shorts, so yeah, maybe, I mean, you're right alongside the ocean, but what got them to that conclusion? There's no evidence, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly. And again, this is part of this statement of possibilities or like hypotheticals of what could have happened to Enrique. And the full quote does provide a little bit more context to that than just like saying that this is what could have happened. So here, Abigail, why don't you go ahead and read this for us?
Please understand that homicide basically means that someone's death was caused by someone else. That means the death could have been intentional or it could have been unintentional. For example, in this case, someone running over someone with a boat while the person was in the water, etc. That's very specific.
It sure is.
That's very specific. I mean, I don't know. Like you said, it's an investigation and we want answers and we want to know exactly what they're doing to get to the bottom of a case, and especially something as crazy like this, but that is very specific. And if it was someone running over someone while the person was in the water with a boat, who was driving the boat?
Right.
Who saw him in the water?
And again, to be clear, like, it's pretty clear that, like, here that they're just, like, tossing out, like, what, like, this could have happened, right? Like, we're, like, this is kind of where we're going, like, maybe, potentially. But it's like, okay, so my brain goes in two different directions, right? Like, one, either, like, they clearly, like, believe that this may have been the case, potentially. Mm-hmm. So, like, that brings me down a whole different rabbit hole. But, like, first off, like, where the fuck did that even come from? What the hell? And second of all, like maybe just a thing here, right? Like, maybe, like, stop guessing and just, like, find out what the fuck happened.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, yeah, like, why are you just, like, tossing out this, like, really horrific way that, like, this guy may have died, and, like, not backing it up with any evidence? Like let's just go find out what actually happened to him. Like, maybe just, like, stop putting this kind of, like, ridiculous thing into the like, public, unless you're going to back it up.
Yeah, because that only brings more hurt to everyone who's following the case and everybody in the family. Because if they ever, get to a solution of what happened, or even, finding the rest of the body, like, they're just reliving that over and over again in a completely different way. And, your mind starts to ravel into, what was he thinking in the last situation? Like, but I don't... It's so specific for y'all to have waited so long to actually go look for answers.
Yeah. Well, and, like, seems, like, really unlikely to me. Like, I don't, like, listen, I'm not a boat person at all, but, like, it certainly, like, seems to me, like, it seems like a far fetch that a boat propeller could cut off your freaking head.
He would have had to have been kind of, like, far out in the water, too. I mean, kind of ish.
Well, so, and here's where my brain goes of how that could have happened, I guess. Like let's, and this requires us to believe that, like, everything that the other 7 people said was, like, a total lie. Like, maybe, like, we're like if we're led to believe that this is what happened, like, maybe, like, the last time that they saw him wasn't walking away from the campsite. It was actually, like, when they were like boating, like, they, like, got a boat somehow, like, I don't know, and, like, we're riding, and then, like, they were fooling around, like, being dumb kids, and, like, Enrique was in the water somehow, like, put the rest of it together, kind of thing, right? Like, that's the only thing that makes any sort of sense to me, is that, like, everything that we've been told about this case so far is a total lie. But I don't know, man. I just, like, I don't know. It really just feels like a left field kind of comment to me. And again, I go back to, like, let's not, like, put these hypotheticals out there. Like, let's just find out what the fuck happened.
Right. Because then, too, it's like, are y'all focusing on this on a back end? You given this hypothetical, something made you do that, but are you sitting in a back room trying to investigate? You're trying to make that make sense.
Right. Exactly.
So how you're trying to gaslight yourself about the apple and the wine that they're kind of, they just had the seed was planted, and they're like, okay, let's figure out a way to grow it.
Right. I mean, yeah, kind of. I don't know. Again, just go, like, figure it out. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't really feel, I don't know. And, like, again, like, there's so much we don't know about this case at the same time, right? Like, I feel, like, pretty confident in that, or at least, like, nothing solid, and we're about to find out, like, why we don't really know anything solid about this case. So, like, hold on, Abigail, I see your face.
Yeah,
I know I don't
you're
like
killing
it either.
me.
But I know, but the point being is that, like, they're, like, it like, when I read this, like, it just totally opened up a whole new can of worms here of, like, what do we really know about this case? Like, what do we, like, where are we going here that, like, this is even a remote possibility? So let's get there, because I see you're
scared.
not happy with me. Yeah, so let's get there. Well, by November of that year, investigators had moved Enrique's case to a cold case status, saying that they did not cover any evidence, neither physical nor testimonial, linking anyone to Enrique's death. Investigators said that throughout the course of the investigation, they had logged thousands of hours, traveled to 6 other states, conducted more than 400 interviews, executed more than 100 warrants and subpoenas, and sent crews to the island to search by land, sea, and air 7 times. By spring of 2022, it seemed like the family was never going to get any definitive answers until one day they get the news that absolutely blew their minds. Crime Over Wine is proud to support Emancipet. Unlike episodes of Crime Over Wine, veterinary care shouldn't be a mystery, which is why Emancipet is making vet care affordable and accessible to everyone. Emanciped is a nonprofit organization that operates an ever-expanding network of low-cost veterinary clinics in neighborhoods across the country, offering discounted and free vaccines, flea and tick treatments, spay and neuter surgeries, and much more. Learn more and support Emanciped's mission at emanciped.org. In April of 2022, the news breaks that the 7 soldiers who went camping with specialist Enrique Roman-Martinez nearly 2 years prior were charged in the General Courts Martial, the military's highest level trial court.
What were they charged with?
So they were each charged with different variations of the following charges: conspiracy, failure to obey a direct order or regulation related to travel during a travel ban, and disobeying a superior or making false statements, but nothing directly related to Enrique's death.
I feel like that last bit of what you just said is the most important part. Nothing directly related to Enrique's death, which I understand. I mean, I'm glad they're getting called out for lying about this and, for disobeying a travel ban. Like, it makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. But we're focused. I mean, I can't say that they're focusing on the wrong issue, but it's also too, like, why did they decide to charge them? Were they afraid that they were, in light of everything, were they afraid that they were on the suspect list? Were they afraid that they were a risk of not getting their story right and to everybody in mind? But still, we're not focusing on the most important part, and that's Enrique's death. So what led up to the charges?
Well, so that second charge of failure to obey a direct order or regulation related to travel during a travel ban is pretty self-explanatory, right? They weren't supposed to leave base, and they did. But the other two are far more interesting. If you remember, the friends originally told investigators that they left early that morning with 3 people, including Enrique, to go to the Outer Banks. But investigators figured out that for one reason or another, they lied about a 4th person being in the car that day. They also had originally told them that there were only 7 people total at the campsite, when in reality there were 8, again, including Enrique. So that's where the conspiracy and part of where the making false statements charges come from. The rest of the false statement comes from a 4th charge that is super interesting, Abigail. 3 of the soldiers are also charged with using LSD during the trip and lying about it.
I just pumped the brakes and went back 100 feet. I did not do the Monopoly, pass go, collect $200, because I assumed that the false statement was going to be, like, we tried looking for a park ranger, like the 911 call.
Sure.
That just completely came out of right field. For there to be an additional person, why would you lie about that?
Yeah. Well, and again, going back to kind of what we were talking about before, like, unless, and if you read, like, the list, like, there's, like, in fact, I'm going to. Okay, so on this trip, there is a sergeant, a private first class, a private, and then 4 different specialists. And then on top of that, a specialist in Enrique Roman-Martinez. And so the only thing that makes any sort of sense, and I never saw, like, which one of these people was, like, the additional person that they didn't know about. But the only thing that makes sense to me is that, like, it was probably the sergeant that they didn't tell anyone about. Because the sergeant, like, first of all, was not charged with using LSD. And like, the sergeant is supposed to be, like, in charge of all these people, right? And so, that's, like, so maybe that's, again, like, if their interest here is, like, to try not to get in trouble, like, certainly a sergeant would be, like, the person who'd get, like, the most trouble of all these people if something really, really bad happened. So I think that that's probably where like this lying part comes from, but also I would imagine that it's probably also what you were talking about before about the park ranger thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you mentioned their titles and everything, now I'm, like, on a conspiracy theory, I guess, of, was it a matter of power of authority? It wasn't more of the younger protecting the older. It's older said, this is what we are going to do.
Sure, probably.
Do this. Like,
yeah. And I wish I knew who made the phone call too, but, like, they bleeped out his name.
Right.
I don't know.
But we know he was, like, very calm, couldn't figure out his name. Like,
yeah.
But, and what ranking was he?
Yeah. Man, I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy, right?
That would be really interesting. Sorry, like, if the person who called was possibly the sergeant who is the one that was left out, that wouldn't really make sense, because then you have record of it. No, that wouldn't make sense. You couldn't lie about that.
No, that wouldn't.
Yeah, because, I mean, what did they sit around? Well, okay, so then we have to, with it being a group, you have to think, did all of them want to make a phone call? who decided who made the phone call? Did everyone else not want to make a phone call because they didn't want to get in trouble? But this guy was like, okay, we got to do something. But he was very calm, like you said. So yeah, that's weird. And then LSD, where did they? I mean, mind you, I know nothing. So where did they get LSD from? Like,
that's a great question.
Where did they get it from? I mean, but I guess they went on a ferry. Like, there were tons of different places in the middle before they got to the location.
Well, and, like, drugs, listen, like, one thing I learned, because I used to, like, my first job in news, was right outside of a Marine Corps base. What I learned living there for only a year is that drugs on military bases are, like, way more common than you ever would have even imagined. Yeah, it's, like, insane. And especially LSD, actually, like, is really common on military bases. Like, those kind of drugs, like, hard drugs, really, really common among them.
Interesting. Okay, because then that was going to be my next thing was like, you know, how often are these people taking drugs and what would their reaction have been like? Would they know how they were going to? But also, I'm assuming yes. Did they know that they were taking LSD? Was it something that they were drugged or like under a different circumstance? I guess. Interesting.
Yeah. And again, so there's 3 of them that were charged, right? Only 3 of them out of the 7 that were charged with stuff. And so I'm also wondering, like, if there's a possibility that Enrique was also taking these drugs, and which would explain why he just, again, if we're going to believe this whole story that I just told you all about, how he just, like, you know, wandered off into the night, like, that would explain why he did that, right? If he was on some sort of drugs, left all of his belongings behind, like, maybe, again, if we're going to go off of this, like, this was a really bad accident type of situation, like, maybe just was drugged out of his brain, like, probably, from what I'm understanding, like, probably didn't do a lot of drugs in his life because he seemed like a really good kid.
Yeah.
Like, maybe this was, like, one of the first times he did it. So if this was really one of the first times that he, you know, took this drug, like, probably didn't react very well to it. So, I mean, and like, that's where, like this conspiracy, like, charge comes from, right? Because kind of what you're talking about, like, okay, well, like, you know, like, we're going, because that's what a conspiracy is like, you know, we're going to decide, like, how we're going to say this, what we're going to lie about, and how we're going to, like, frame this whole thing. Like, that's what it is. So
that's crazy. And I'm also what would be really helpful here is if they would have done a thorough job of finding the rest of his body to maybe run a toxicology report to see. I mean, mind you, like, that feels like a minor part to know if he may or may not have taken the drug, but it would at least provide a little bit more context and more information than what you have.
I feel like you probably could run a toxicology report just on a head. I mean, because it's through the blood.
Yeah.
So.
But, well,
I don't know.
If it's cut up, I don't know how much, I don't know. I haven't watched Criminal Minds enough for this, or Grey's Anatomy, whichever one you want to call it for, but still more questions than we're getting answers to.
I agree. I totally agree. Well, the soldiers' cases are at various stages in the Army's criminal justice system as of this recording, but most of them have either pled guilty or been convicted of their charges. Everyone who was convicted was reduced in rank and no longer serves in the Army, either by dismissal or resignation. Interestingly, however, investigators said earlier this year that none of the 7 soldiers who were with Enrique that day are currently considered suspects in Enrique's death.
That's probably one of the most surprising bits that we have gotten to.
Yeah.
Because again, this leads into we don't get to know all the parts of the investigation, which, you know, drives us crazy. But what evidence do you have that says that they weren't there? Especially, I mean, at this point, I think it's safe to say we can't judge their word of mouth story because it hasn't added up. And there were, you know, throughout the rest of this time. So, like, what, you know, is it footprints in the sand? Is it, I mean, I have no idea. I guess maybe if they're going off phone record, I don't know. I don't like this.
Yeah, well, and so a couple of thoughts come into my head on that front of like, first off, like, just because they're not suspects now doesn't mean that they never will be suspects, right? It just probably means, you know, that they don't have enough, like, evidence to, like, point them in that direction, but also to, like, you know, investigations, like, typically the people who were, like, with that person, you know, are initially considered suspects too, right? Like, I mean, that's just, like, natural. You know, like a child goes missing and, like, and the parents are immediately considered suspects just because, like, they were around the child, you know, even if they, like, end up ruling them out. And so to me that says, like, potentially that they were potentially ruled out in one way or another, but also too, like where my brain goes in the complete opposite direction of like maybe they do kind of know a little bit more than what you know we're led to believe from the investigation standpoint of, you know, like odds are, right, like one person did something, like if we're going down this rabbit hole of like one of these 7 people or any of these 7 people did something to Enrique that led to his death, it's probably not all 7, right? It's probably 1 or 2 that did something stupid, you know, maybe did something malicious, and like the rest of them kind of like conspired to like cover it up potentially, again, in like the worst possible case scenario here, innocent until proven guilty, yada 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 yada. Right. But like so like where my brain goes on that front of like they're clearly like, if this is where this investigation is leading to, that they are like really like kind of intertwined in all of this, like I would imagine that like pointing 1 or 2 of them out probably wouldn't really help. Right. Like you probably want to like play dumb a little bit in this type of situation, I would imagine, because if you lead on that you know more than what you know, then they just kind of start like, you know, if they're like really covering each other's tracks that much, then then you don't want to, if you start leading on that you know more than you actually than you do, then that it's just gonna like they're just gonna start like covering each other's tracks even more, right? I mean, potentially. So
yeah, because then you know what kind of direction they're thinking, so you're like, okay, like then you are kind of playing like a PR campaign standpoint of like crisis communications and trying to like plan it out. Which, I mean, if it's a conspiracy, like, you know, just as you're mentioning, because that's what I'm thinking too, is like 1 or 2, it was accidental or malicious, and then you're like, oh crap. And, you know, the rest of the people may not have any idea about it. They may just only know what they were told, and so they're like, genuinely have no idea. I could have, I mean, especially with it being the hours, with them last seeing him so late at night and then waking up at 8 in the morning, that's a big time frame. That's a huge time frame.
Yeah, and too, like, you have to have enough evidence to like actually charge that person.
True.
Like and if you're just gonna like blanket it all and charge all of them with this because you think that there's enough there to like, you know, to charge that somebody in this group did it, but like not enough that like points it to a specific person, like that's problematic for your investigation as well.
Absolutely.
So they're walking a tightrope here for sure. Again, all on the assumption that like somebody in that group did something or knows something more than what they're telling investigators at this point.
I feel like even if someone didn't do something, it would be hard not to know something, because I would imagine you wouldn't. I mean, going back to like what the area looked like, it looked like a straight shot, and so if it was a matter of someone stalking them or like something, like my mind's just going crazy at this point. But if it was someone not involved, I'm assuming you would hear a scream potentially, and especially because with there being a broken jaw, and then also the matter of decapitation, washing up in the middle, at some point, like I feel like there was some sort of altercation with there being a broken jaw. I'm like, okay, was there a fight first, and then what happened? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, and also, I mean, you go back to that freaking propeller theory. I mean, that would certainly, if it's strong enough to decapitate you, certainly would be strong enough to cause the rest of the injuries too. But I just don't think that a propeller is strong enough to decapitate you. I just don't.
Yeah, and I feel like there would have to be maybe some sort of something maybe stuck in the head, but then you got to look at like how clean is the cut? Does it look like...
there would be evidence.
There would be something that would be able to tell you like, yes, this was done on purpose and it was by someone who's like trained to be able to do it, I guess, essentially, like knowing where to cut, whatever. Yeah. This is crazy that we're having this conversation.
Yeah, it sure is. But to this day, though, no charges have ever been filed directly related to Enrique's death. But that has not stopped Enrique's family from demanding some kind of justice, and they still believe that there is some kind of justice to be had here. In November of 2022, the family's local member of Congress in California introduced a bill that would ensure best practices for handling cold cases are shared across investigative divisions of all branches of the military. It adds standards for when cold cases should be open to outside review, and also adds oversight into how the investigative agencies handle those cold cases.
I'm glad there's some sort of initiative that's coming around from like their perspective, not from the family, because the family's been trying hard since day one. And that also is taking me back to, we were talking about don't give out hypothetical scenarios for what may have happened.
Yeah.
Thinking that they may have lost their son due to something done to himself, like he did to himself, not being in a good mindset. Like, that's also terrifying.
How do you kill yourself by decapitating yourself? I can't imagine that's what happened here. I just can't.
No, there's no way. And especially for them to be told that, that he was maybe going through something and like not in a good headspace. They're being told that. So they're kind of like going back to what you said, like, family thought he was fine. He's better than he has been. And then for this to happen, it doesn't add up. But, I'm sure in the back of their head, they're like, what if he got in a bad headspace? I don't know. There's no way to see how this played out. And I wish we had like a little magic ball to get answers for everyone involved for this.
Yeah, me too. Well, earlier this year in 2023, the family filed a civil suit against the Army over what they believe was its poor handling of the investigation, accusing them of not being thorough and for not being transparent with them. And although there isn't much progress being made in Enrique's death currently, that doesn't mean that there won't ever be. Earlier this year, the family told ABC 11 in Raleigh, North Carolina, that investigators were considering reopening Enrique's case. Now, it's not totally clear if that's because of new evidence or maybe the possibility of discovering new evidence, but point being is there is still the possibility of finding answers to Enrique's death once and for all. So if you know anything about the death of Specialist Enrique Roman-Martinez, you're asked to call Army CID Special Agents at 910-396-8777. We're also going to put that number on our website and in our show notes too. There is a $50,000 reward for information that leads to an arrest.
It's been so long for this family and those family and friends of his to not know anything. I would hope that, it does give me a little bit of hope hearing that investigators are considering reopening the case, because realistically, like on a side of resources, you would think that there is something that maybe someone is ready to talk that hasn't been ready to talk.
Right.
Maybe there has been some sort of information or evidence that's coming to light, but it's been a long road for this family. It's frustrating for us, so I can't even imagine Enrique's family going this long without information, probably knowing that there is justice that needs to be served somewhere, somehow.
Yeah, and like also too, kind of talking about what you were, talking about someone being willing to talk, that kind of thing, like where my brain goes, of like half these people have been convicted of, within the Army kind of thing, of these crimes. Like, that doesn't give you jail time, to be clear.
Right.
But it does, it gets you, kicked out of the Army.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if that has something to do with it, that like that pressure is gone, or they potentially know that, like things are closing in that way. I don't know.
I'm sure that does help. And especially if it's from a standpoint of what you mentioned earlier, like with the rankings, like trying to, with them purposefully looking like they were hiding somebody, like taking that off the table, which, of course you're going to have to go through the instances of getting them kicked out and then dealing with that huge transition in your life. But I really wonder if someone is ready to speak.
Yeah, I certainly hope we get to find out like really soon, Abigail, like, because of right now, this case like really keeps me up at night, like honestly, because I just can't, like, I really strongly feel like it can go like one of like two very different ways here. Like, it's either like these 7 people like did something really, really bad to Enrique and we just are waiting to find out what it is, or it's that like this was just everything that we know about this case was actually true and this was just a really bad situation, like he walked off and something bad happened to him from there.
Yeah, I feel like that's the way that I'm kind of leaning towards, just from the point of view.
Which one? The latter?
I think that there was some sort of involvement from someone of the group, but I don't know.
No, I know. Every time I try to convince myself of like one extreme, I'm like, oh, but like, what if, like I kind of go both ways, because it really, like, I really could see a world, right, where it ends up being where like they like truly just this was just a really bad accident, and they didn't say anything because they didn't want to get in trouble with their with the military people, right? Like they delayed everything because they were just like, let's just try to find him, and then we won't have to worry about getting ourselves into trouble, like whatever. Like it can't be that bad, right? Because I feel like every time that something bad happens to people, like you don't want to believe that it's actually that bad, right?
Of course, you never think it's going to be you or somebody you know,
right? Exactly. And so I could see that world where it's just a purely innocent like whoopsie, you know, type situation. Like I hate to even say that, but like, you know what I mean? But like, I could also see like the complete opposite extreme here, where like they really conspired to cover up this kid's death. Like it really could be either way. Yeah, because they're at the end of the day, you can't argue the fact that they lied. And so, of course, that's going to bring red flags. I mean, even, you know, there's just... They didn't do themselves any favors at all. No, not at all. And especially considering, you know, how this has played out. It's so frustrating that there have been no sort of consequences related to his death. But I don't know. Even if something happened after he walked off in the middle of the night, I mean, still, I don't think he anticipated any, like, being away from the group for long in the middle of the night, considering he didn't have his glasses. Agreed. And so... I don't imagine he would go far. So what happened between that distance that he may have walked? I mean, he might have taken a swim, but we don't know. I want to know how far he walked. I wish I could have a magic ball and none of this would have happened. I wish first of all, second, I wish he would have taken his phone with him so we could have seen how far he went. Because I mean, I don't know, was he ever put in a car at one point? Was he ever, you know, who all did he encounter? But for this to be so open of an area, if there was, you know, any sort of like foul play, like while he was conscious and aware, how did you not hear any scream? But for there to possibly be LSD involved with Enrique and then also with the three, we have no idea of knowing. Yeah, that really changes the game, huh? It really, really does. I don't know. I hope they get the answers that, you know, they need and they deserve. It's crazy to think that after all this time that something could be done. I could completely understand if the family and people just don't have a lot of hope because there's been so much, especially after filing a lawsuit. Like, that's a big deal. So I don't... And she, like changes, like if they weren't getting anywhere with them before, like certainly they're not getting anywhere with them now that they've like sued them, so, and after so many times has passed. Well, you know, we could really talk about this like in circles all day long probably, so I'm just gonna like put a pin in this right now, put a cork in this right now, and say that this is all that we have for you this week. So Abigail, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for having me. It was fun getting to try a new wine with you and hear about a story. Like I said, we hope we get to have answers to shortly. Me too. That's going to be one of those cases for me for sure from now on. But in the meantime, tell everyone where they can find you and your work online. You can find me at Local 3 News. You'll always find me at 11 o'clock on weekdays. And on Twitter, you can find me at Abigail Local 3. And I would love to hear from you. Well, awesome. Thank you again so much for coming on, Abigail. And thank you all so much for listening. We are going to put all of our sources on our website so you can read everything for yourself and probably come up with a few theories too. And if you are just loving this podcast and you're just looking for a way to tell everyone and anyone about it, the best way to help people discover this podcast is by leaving us a 5-star rating and a review wherever you are listening right now. So make sure you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you're wondering what we have in store for you next week, here's a quick sneak peek. Hello, everybody. It's Liam.
And I'm Montana Moore. Next week, I'm entering the crime vineyard to tell you all about a murder case that changed the world of reality TV as we knew it. What happened to Jasmine Fiore?
I promise we will tell you every single painstaking detail, but you'll have to wait until next Wine Wednesday for another episode of Crime Over Wine.
Proud member of the Podnuga Network.